folks. Today's episode's all about EV charging and Smart Charge America's newest SCA 40 electric vehicle charging station. This is one of their finest commercial charging stations out in public right now. We are brought to you by Smart Charge America. I am Joseph Barletta, and this is the Charge Life podcast, where we discuss EVs and all things EV charging. Glad you could pull over and park with us today. So let's get plugged in. Before we get started, today's episode is brought to you by Smart Charge America. Since 2007, Smart Charge America has installed tens of thousands of EV charging stations nationwide, and they can do the same for you today. Let their team of expert installation specialists guide you to the very best charging solution for your new electric car. After all, if you can't charge, you can't drive. Visit Smart Charge America today to get started. All right, today's episode, we talk about the newest commercial EV charging station that Smart Charge America has just debuted, their SCA 40. Today's special guest is Buzz Smith, the EV Angelist. Buzz, welcome to the podcast. If you can, just take a few minutes to kind of share with the audience who you are and kind of what brought you into this space and, what you're most likely forward to look to. So.
Okay. Again, I'm Buzz Smith, the EV Angelist. I'm spreading the good news of electric vehicles, and I'm an accidental EV owner. I'm just like you guys. I saw this amazing car. I ended up getting it. But it was caused literally by a car accident. I got rear-ended on the freeway. Believe it or not, a fracking truck had flipped over, and so the whole freeway is at a stop, and I got rear-ended, totaled my car. And gas back then was a little over $4 a gallon, which, was horrific in 2012,
wow.
10 years ago.
Huge.
And I wish I could take credit for it. My wife was a smart one. She goes, well, why don't we check out these plug-in cars? And within a month, I had one, and my wife seemed to not really care for it, but 60 days later, she traded in her car and got the same plug-in model
Nice.
I got. And then when my daughter got her driver's license, we got her one too. So we went with, 3 chargers at our house and never looked back. And a year later, I went to work for the dealership. And so I sold electric vehicles here in Texas. In fact, I was the #1 EV salesperson for the entire state from 2013 to when I retired in 2019.
Huge.
But
wow.
yeah, I'm like you guys are. I'm just so jazzed about these cars. This is the coolest thing ever. And just like every EV owner, I just want to share as much information as I can with everybody.
Love it. Love the passion. Hold on to that passion. We're going to talk a little bit about our Smart Charge America partnership with a company called Xeal. Xeal is a software company that has started making an impact in the EV charging market. And, we've been following the EV charging space since 2007, since we opened up. And we were really hesitant to put our name on and partner with a specific software company, hardware company. If we were going to put our name on it, it had to work. We knew it, right? And so we've been waiting a long time, about a decade of installing these chargers, so forth and so on, trying to figure out who's got the best product, what, some of the things that we're working on. And Xeal, believe it or not, Xeal, the company Xeal, which we talked about earlier on what Xeal means. It's that passion, right? That passion that you have. And I think that of anyone that I know in the EV space, there is no one that elicits the amount of zeal that this gentleman right here in front of me does. Buzz, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done and you will continue to do for the EV community in general. We're going to talk about a little bit about little caveat to that EV industry, which is charging. And I know charging is a big weight on your shoulders because when it comes to people kind of inquiring about purchasing EVs, maybe one of the main arguments is the charging infrastructure is not there. How do I charge these things? What about, that and the battery question? What if the battery dies on me? It's like, oh, God, well, you don't buy a car and say, like, what if the engine dies on me? It's like, no, you just know the engine's going to die after like 200, maybe 300,000 miles. Battery degradation is 10% after 100,000 miles. Figure it out. Do the math. Can't walk you through that. It's another conversation. It's another podcast all in itself. But what we wanted to talk today was about the Smart Charge America's new SCA 40. There's a press release that just hit the waves, I believe, about a month ago. And the press release was written in relationship to our partnership, the Xeal partnership, and why Smart Charge America decided to couple and partner with them and be able to offer that solution to their customers. You have to understand, we're a completely agnostic charging company. So you come to us, you want to put charging stations in. Great. Which one are you thinking? If you don't have an idea on what you're thinking, we can kind of give you some options to choose from, kind of show you the kind of the do's and don'ts and sort of the pros and cons of each one of the manufacturers and kind of what they bring to the table, and let you choose based on price point or whatever mixed use case scenario that you're trying to do. Help you make the best. Kind of give you the power to choose, no pun intended, to make the best solution for your given use case scenario. So, with that being said, we sell a lot of wall boxes, ChargePoint, Tesla, Juice Box. A lot of manufacturers out there, they have their product, and we sell them. It's basically kind of what our customers want. We sell it to them. So we have partnerships with various OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, and we'll order in bulk with them. We'll order a pallet or two of their stations, and it takes us generally a long time to kind of get those stations off our shelves, just based on the demand. Sometimes they go quick, but I can tell you, of all of the commercial level 2 charging stations, there's one station that really is the breadwinner when it comes to level 2 charging. Public charging, you guys have probably seen this station out and about, and if you haven't, you probably haven't been paying attention to electric vehicle charging or electric vehicles in the first place, but that is the infamous ChargePoint CT4021, which is the dual port ChargePoint station, pedestal mounted, or wall mounted, whichever. But that is the most widely sold, most notorious.
I've seen a couple of those around the Austin area.
They own like 70% of the EV charging market, if you want to say that. So, public charging market. So, with that, the problem with, and I'm not here to badmouth any manufacturer, but it's just everything over the past few years with inflationary things, supply chain issues, COVID, has exacerbated some cost issues. And so the cost of these stations on our side has gone up 29%.
Wow.
Over the past year. So we have a rolling 12-month period, and what I was purchasing the station for 13 months ago and what I'm purchasing it now is 29% more expensive.
But inflation was only 8.1%.
Yes.
Isn't that
interesting?
interesting?
Very interesting. So, yeah, I think there's the supply chain component that's also in there that perhaps that manufacturer just hasn't built enough redundancy or resiliency inside their supply chain. So I think that's where a lot of the pricing pressure came to that particular manufacturer. And as a result, it really got us thinking, like, we got to do something about this. I think we have an ownership here where we have to start thinking about scale and the way that these EVs are accelerating with sales. You see it. You're on top of the sales charts. You know who's more popular, the rate at which they're excelling. It used to be 1% of the U.S. new car sales market was EVs. Now it's like 3%, 5%. In California, it was 8%, recent article that came out. And so we're seeing that we're just on the very, very small bottom of this S-curve. But as a result, the electric vehicle charging infrastructure is heavily lagging back on not able to meet the parallel, and at the rate at which the electric cars are selling, the charging station infrastructure is not able to meet that same demand.
And it's not just the grow rate, it's the reputation. I mean, everybody says, all the chargers are down all the time except for Tesla. So what does that do? That pushes everybody into buying Teslas.
Right.
And, for somebody that owns their own home, or at least lives in a single family dwelling, 99% of the time you're going to charge at home. So you don't really, it shouldn't.
I love your house, by the way.
Thank you. By the way. It shouldn't dictate how which brand of car you get. Yes. For most of us.
Yes.
But that keeps coming up. And so we need superheroes like you guys to make this more reliable. And, we're both board members with the Texas Electric Transportation Resources Alliance, working with the legislature and all. Mm-hmm. But that's how you and I got to really know each other, and we stay in touch. And when you told me about this and sent me the press release, I got really excited. I mean, there's so many cool things in this, and we're going to break it all down for you, and it's going to be, I swear, this is really interesting stuff. And I'm going to get very jazzed about it. But this is fundamentally going to change this market and get rid of that black eye that most of the chargers out there are giving us. And, we'll get to this in a little bit. The thing you told me about what the number one failure is, I mean, it just blew my mind. I wasn't expecting that at all. And so as we get into this, I think you're going to get jazzed too.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the amount of charging stations we've installed over the past few years, we've installed close to 15,000 charging stations, roughly about 20,000 ports, because a majority of that were dual port commercial charging stations, so forth and so on. We've noticed over the we've been in the industry for 15 years, didn't really start really snowballing until about 2012, 2013. So over the past decade, we've serviced quite a number of charging stations for manufacturers, contracts, so forth and so on. And we've noticed that one of the number one things that goes out on these charging stations, these public level 2 charging stations, for the most part, doesn't really happen with DC fast charging, but it could, and it does, I can tell you that, is the networking issues. Some sort of line of communication is lost or hiccuped between the networking communication. You ever driving and you fall into like a dead zone and you can't quite hear what the person's saying, and then it just reestablishes?
Yeah.
When it comes to cellular connection on a software platform with chargers, they don't like that. Any disruption that happens, they may not get back on cue. And so if it doesn't get back on cue, well, it requires someone to go over there and reset the charging station sometimes. Or because it's not on cue, so the cellular, the manufacturer of the charging station, the network owner, they can't log into it to reset it.
Right.
So
Because
it
there's
has
no
to
network
be
connection.
correct. And so it has to be done on site.
They have
so
to send out a service
to
rep.
flip a breaker. Okay, once that breaker is kind of like you have to reset your cell phone every now and then because you just kind of feel that something's not right. Let me just power it off. There's some kind of disruption that's happening there. And what happens is once you reset the breaker, then it aligns that network up, and now you're able to do it. And so a good percentage of the times and the problems that we have with the reliability across the network is the networking, the cellular component of that network, and how the software of that cellular thing talk to one another. Charging station manufacturers are getting better. They're building a lot of redundancy. They're allowing, hey, look, instead of the Rogers network, the RSSI signal, we can do AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon all inside one modem. And if one's not working, then we can flip to another one and see if that's able to, make the connection issue there. So they're getting better at it, but a lot of the older infrastructure that's currently out there is the one that's suffering on this stuff. So, and with the inflationary cost pressures on these charging stations exacerbating in cost. I mean, you're going from something that was retailing at $9,000, which is crazy for a dual port commercial charging station, but it's well built. It's solid. It stands the test of time. Cable management, all of that. Where now it's $11,000 for that same station. It's gone up 20%. And so tax title and license, $11,000 to put a single charging station in the ground. That's a lot. That's just the cost of the station. Ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you that if you include the installation side of that, it is roughly on average between $7,500 and $15,000. It could be within a 90% standard deviation per unit. It's going to be around that on a commercial standpoint. It's just because a lot of the times where they're trying to put these public charging stations, they're not necessarily an electric panel right next to it. The electric panel is way over here, right? And so you have to, as an electrical contractor, figure out how do I get my supply line from that panel to this station mounting point, right? And so before we actually go and install, when we're doing our electrical survey of the site, we actually have an RSSI signal reader where we stand right where we want the charging station at, and we look at what the signal strength is. And if that signal strength doesn't match a range, which we know that station is going to operate in, then we can't put the charging station there. Just because the cellular connection, the cellular feed, you ever go into a parking garage and you can't have cellular session? That's exactly what happens. Especially if there's charging stations down there that don't have that. That installer didn't have the means of being able to measure that RSSI signal at that point, and didn't tell the people that wanted the charging station there that, hey, you need to get a cellular booster over here. You need to pick up the signal. They don't do that. So what happens is you go to the charging station and you can't operate it from your app. You have to manually go there and put your RFID card or scan. So that's a whole nother issue. We're going down the rabbit hole here. I told you we were going to do it. So again, the number one issue is the network issue. So there are 5 main reasons why charging stations are down, right, when it comes to inoperability. The network, software, hardware, the electrical, and vandalism. Those are your 5.
And in your experience, that network connection that we're focused on today, what
one.
percentage is that?
About 88%.
Wow.
I would say the other 10% is the actual part itself. The software generally has to do with the network, and so it's kind of a combination of those two. Good 10% of the time it's the hardware. Something failed inside the hardware. Manufacturer's pretty good at sending us the part, and we go out to replace it. But then again, the manufacturer's only going to replace the part. They're not going to pay you or pay somebody else to go out there and replace it. You know, they can send you the part. You can replace it yourself, but are you a certified electrician? I don't know. You may want to write that down. So then you have your electrical. Normally, about 2% of the time, if it is the electrical, it's the grounding. The electrician didn't ground the unit properly, or the entire row of units properly. He might have grounded one, and so there's some sort of issue where the chargers are communicating, hey, there's something wrong here on the electrical side of things. And 98% of the time, it's grounding. Only 2% of the time, they may have used aluminum wiring instead of copper wiring. And so it's okay to use aluminum wire from, let's say, the main junction, like the main power location to the panel. You can use aluminum, but if you're going from that circuit to the charger, you want to make sure all of that is copper. Anything that's going into the lugs and the terminals inside that charging station have to be copper, because a charging station operates a load factor unlike any other appliance out there, period. You can see the charging curve, right? It spikes up, and it's just continuous draw for a long period of time, and then it drops on level 2 charging. You know the DC fast charging kind of follows a different charging cycle, but we'll get into that later. So the idea behind Smart Charge America accumulating the SCA 40 was huge in our opinion because of the technology that was coupled with this company, the software company Xeal. We absolutely loved seeing how they're able to utilize Bluetooth technology and get away from the 88% chance that the network all that's gone. Just take 88% of the reasons why charging stations are inoperable and just flush that down the toilet. Their software comes out with Bluetooth connectivity, so you walk up to the station and you're able to access the station from your phone. So the station itself doesn't have a cellular connection, but your phone does. So because of that, you're pretty reliable on your phone connection. And even if you're in a parking lot that doesn't have cell phone reception, it's okay. Your phone is still giving off a Bluetooth signal, and it's still able to make that connection with the charger. And so in that case, we don't have to worry about the cellular component. And believe it or not, charging station manufacturers charge you price per port for the cellular connection per year.
And when you say charge you, you're talking about the host of the charging site.
Yes,
if
you're the host
that owns that.
Oh yeah, if you're hosting that charging station site, they're charging you $280 per port per year. So if you have a dual port station, it's $560 per year.
Holy cow.
Multiply that by 5 years.
And you've eliminated that completely, or Xeal has eliminated that completely
Gone.
with their methodology here.
Gone.
Now, when I walk up to the charger, do I have to pull my phone out, go to settings, go to Bluetooth, search for a charger?
No, automatically.
So how does that connection get made for the consumer?
There's a QR code right there. And so you can either pull up your phone, your camera, and zoom the QR code, and it opens up the app for you. And you already have your account registered in the app. It says you want to start charging. You be like, yep. And then boom, you just start charging. If you have the app open, it'll actually be able to sense that you're near that, and you just click the button, and then it just opens.
Awesome.
So it's it took us 10 years and we could have coupled with Tesla, with Juicebox, Wallbox, ChargePoint, everyone, all of the major manufacturers. But it's that cellular component issue that was just driving us insane. 88% of the problems itself. And we're like, okay, wait. So let me wrap my mind around this. You mean to tell me that a charging station has a cell phone inside of it that's reading with a cellular network, and the charging manufacturer as a host is charging me per port for that subscription. When there's only one cell phone in there, they're charging me per port, which that's another story. And me as a driver, I have a cell phone on me. And so there's a component where there's double work there. There's double redundancy, and it doesn't need to be there. And because of one of the redundancies, one of the cellular connections is always the course of the problem happening, just get rid of that and use your cell phone.
Now, you said something just in passing a second ago. You said that when I go to this charger with my phone, I don't even my phone doesn't have to have a connection to the network. Well, how are you going to charge me for the electricity I got? How is that going to work if I'm not? I mean, I've been to Rocky Mountain National Park, and there are places where I can't get a cell phone connection. Well, if I can't get a phone connection, can I still charge?
Yes. The software uses blockchain technology, and I hope not to lose anyone on this conversation, but that is the resilience behind the software and what makes the software so unique. Just don't think of it as blockchain. Just think of it as Bluetooth. Just think of it as Bluetooth. So if you at that point don't have cellular connection when you're making that Bluetooth connection and you're authorizing the charging session, eventually you will.
Yeah.
Sometime you will. Once you establish that cellular connection, the phone basically uses that cell phone that line with a general ledger kind of blockchain. And it communicates with the app.
So it just does a data dump whenever it finally gets connected to the network again, and that information goes where it's supposed to go. Right. I'm identified in this ultra secure blockchain.
That's right.
So I don't have to worry about my private financials or anything.
No, it's all gone.
And that's huge.
It's amazing.
I mean, it's a simpler device in the long run.
I don't want to lose people by talking about the complications of it, but I love the fact that you talked about it because we're tens when it comes to this. Our audience members may not be as advanced, but I think they could sense the passion that we do have about it, and just knowing that if we're avoiding not only the whole problem with why the charging stations become inoperable in the first place, but if we are doing our part as Smart Charge America to be able to drive down the cost of stations themselves, and then drive down the cost of getting these stations in the ground, and drive down the service and reliability expense that goes alongside of it, you're driving down the lifelong cost of putting that infrastructure in the ground. And if you could do that, then maybe we can do our part to accelerate how many charging stations we're putting into this ground to hopefully catch up with the growth of EVs as they continue to grow.
Well, yeah, I mean, at gas stations for 10 or 20 years, thieves have gone in and put credit card scam readers in there. So you scan thinking that you're buying gasoline and it's getting your information. And one of the things I've been a little concerned about is, a lot of chargers are in these parking lots where nobody's watching, not like at a gas station where there might be an attendant looking out at you. Exactly. So I hate the idea of credit card readers on chargers. It just seems like that's so 20th century, and we, here it's 2022. We should be beyond that. So I love the fact that you've got this ultra secure method that's based on an app that's in my phone, so other people can't, get into that and monitor anything. I just think that's just such a brilliant approach to this. Now, you also in the press release mentioned that let's say we need to do a software update on one of these chargers, that it does over-the-air updates. Well, how do you do over-the-air updates if you don't have a network connection? So how do you do that? I mean, that seems
through your network connection via Bluetooth. Once your phone, because that update is inside your app in your phone, and once your phone is connected to that station via Bluetooth, it transmits the over-the-air update to that phone, which then transmits it to every single one of the other charging stations.
So again, then it just, instead of having to wait, 30 minutes to update the software or something, it just sets that aside for now. And as soon as it's not being used for something that requires network access, it'll go get that and update the software while it's charging somebody.
Possibly, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to really dive deep into the layers of it, but that's exactly how it works.
Arthur C. Clarke, the guy from 2001: A Space Odyssey, one of his famous quotes is, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." This is freaking magic, man. It really is. This is amazing to me.
It really is. It really is. And we're hoping that if we're getting rid of that component and we're driving down the cost now, of course, these stations are about $3,600 a pop. So instead of the $11,000, $12,000 tax, title, and license on this, you're paying this. So we have done the math, and it comes out to be a little bit more than 50% on the cost of the station to incur, like to acquire, basically. And so if we can drive down the initial cost of the station, drive down the service and maintenance portion, make sure that it's always working, it's just going to hopefully accelerate the advent on which people are able to put this infrastructure in the ground. We're hoping that. And so a lot of the press release kind of went into the specifics on the fact that we don't require internet connection or cellular connection, so forth and so on, and what we can do to ease the payment system. We're making that process so much easy. Basically, what happens, the plug and charge standard, or like the supercharger network where you just pull up to it and you just charge. We're working on doing a similar thing with that. So the app, the software will have a ISO 15118 component to it with a plug and charge standard, to where we're avoiding the even Bluetooth connection in the first place. Because we're going to register like your car to the app. There's some really sophisticated stuff that's going to go on.
Now, for the people at home, you're saying that when I plug in my car, there's that handshake where the car and the charger are talking to each other. That at that point it says, "Oh, by the way, I'm Buzz's car. Make sure you charge Buzz's account." I don't have to pull out my iPhone for Apple Pay or a credit card or just no little.
For now, you have to pull out scan the QR code and then charging station. But that's it. But in the future, you won't even have to do that, and you're still getting all the benefits of the blockchain technology. No cellular connection, none of that.
And for the host of the charging station, all that uptime is opportunity for extra money.
Hey man, if your charging stations are down, there's no way you can make money off of it. Yeah. So it in general, if a charging station is down, it hurts the entire industry. Think about it. It hurts the ownership that put in, hurts the manufacturer because their brand is on it, right? Hurts the installer because now the ownership thinks the installer is incompetent, and that's the reason why the charging station hurt in the first place. It hurts the network, and it hurts the customer, most important.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we talked about is, the 5 reasons. What are the 5 reasons why the charging station go? Believe it or not, because there's so many different reasons, the 5 reasons, if we are to pinpoint exactly what that is, none of the other parties want to take responsibility for it, and nobody wants to pay for it when it's down. So you're not going to have the cellular guy be like, "Hey, no, that's me.
Yeah,
I got
bad.
I got the tab on this one." It's not the case. Nobody wants to own it. Nobody wants to pay for it. So what happens is, if the host isn't as strong and as passionate about EV charging and having that EV working, it's just going to fall off the wayside. As a business owner, his priorities are not on a charging station amenity for his customers. It's employees. He's got bigger fish to fry that he's trying to balance, and that service component gets built in on Smart Charge America's platform, where if we come in and we install for you and you install our charger, well, we have a special program where we discount the ability to, if anything goes wrong with that station, for 5 years, because we normally will guarantee our work for 1 year. Every electrical contractor across the nation, in the world, can guarantee their labor and their materials for 1 year. After 1 year, if something fails, it's kind of either the circuit breaker manufacturer or something was wrong, and they have a service side of things that goes in and helps keep the revenue coming in for the electrical contractors, so where they're not only relying on the construction side, but they also are relying on the service side. So they will all, kind of communicate and only do 1 year warranty on labor and parts. After that, if something happens, they're going to have to write you an estimate. It's going to have to go to you. You're going to have to prove it. Then they can go out there and they can do that, and that's going to, cost. Whereas for a small upfront fee, we line our service and labor and parts. We call it smarts and labor. So the manufacturer will give you parts and labor. We give you smarts and labor, because when something goes wrong, 5 things go wrong. Which one is it? What's it going to be? No one's going to take ownership. No one wants to pay for it. Our job is to go in there, figure out whose ownership, focus and coordinate and do all the communication between back and forth, truck roll out on site, switch you up, get it repaired, get it up and running. That's what you get with that extra, discounted fee for smarts and labor. We call it our Smart Care Protection Plan. And so when you line a cheaper charging station, use some of those savings to put into that service plan, build it into your business model. No ongoing networking fees, so forth and so on. You have the service and maintenance portion built in. You're dropping the costs, you're building the resiliency of the network up, and you're making it easier for everyone involved: the customer, the network, the owner, the installer, and the charging station provider, the brand. So
now, to make sure I understood this, so you're saying that your 1 year typical warranty when you do this plan gets stretched out to 5 years to match the manufacturer's warranties for the station?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, so there's really one date in the future where I've got to renew or whatever I'm going to do.
Not every year.
Right. Excellent.
And you're not paying for that cellular component every single year. And honestly, if you a lot of people don't know this, the software behind it, that cellular connection, a lot of times the ownership, if we put the charging stations inside of, let's say, a property management company, got us to put it in, and let's say that asset has been sold over the past, 2 years, And now you're dealing with a completely different property management agency, but they still own the property. That asset is on the property. Well, they may not have renewed their subscription for that cell phone plan. So now the station's down.
Yeah.
You're pissed. You can't see it. Why isn't it working? It's because the ownership changed hands, and they are not paying for the residual model because perhaps we sold them on the get this charging station going. We're going. You got all this stuff. You get all this stuff. You get to monetize. You get to make money. All right. And then that 1 year comes and like, dude, I didn't make that much money. Now you're asking me for more money on a subscription fee. Like what? Yes, that's how it works. A lot of business owners, I'm not paying. I don't want to pay that. And all of a sudden, they invested in this. They didn't see the residual point, the ongoing cost on acquiring and having that amenity present for your customers or your coworkers, so forth and so on. And they're like, no, I'm not doing that. So they leave this stranded asset out there. And everyone is hurt by that. And that's why your uptimes across the nation are suffering. That and the component of, which a lot of people don't understand, is that the supply chain issues have really hurt the repair parts coming into the mix. And so sometimes these stations go down and the repair parts just aren't able to get to us in time in order to get them repaired. We can go out there, we can troubleshoot, do all the tech support and all that stuff, figure out exactly what it is. All right, cool, give me the part. Yeah, it'll be 9 months.
Holy cow.
So now that station's down for 9 months. Downtime, 9 months, that's insane. And so by that time, what a lot of these larger OEMs with DC fast charging stations have done is instead of waiting at 9 months and the cost of whatever, they need to monitor. They just go and replace that unit with the newer technology unit, all in. Now that's an added cost because now the supply chain issue on the first side of things, like some of these components are $10,000 or $20,000 for the repair part. Just buy another charging station for $30,000 if it comes to DC fast charging. So a lot of the problems with like Electrify America was that they put in an older model of these charging stations, and as they went down, the manufacturer didn't support the service parts, and so they're just like, well, it was a 50 kW station anyway. We're already built in redundancy and future proof, and we're ready to go 150 or 350. So let's just swap it out. And then meanwhile, they're putting in the order for the 150 charging stations. Supply chain issues are backing that up, and so the station just remains down. So it's just it's a kind of a cost to benefits ratio on what they plan on doing. But overall, this SCA 40 is able to really combat the destination charge, the public level 2 charging aspect of putting those stations in the ground, making it cheaper, making it more affordable, just building in that resiliency, building in that service and maintenance portion inside the business model. It just makes sense. Because the moment your station breaks, again, 5-3, nobody wants to take blame, nobody wants to pay for it. Just remove that altogether. Build it into the business model. If you build it in up front to the business model, if the station goes down, we're out repairing. Like, you don't even know it went down. You know, like if you have like power walls or something like in your house and the grid's down and all your neighbors are down, but your house is up and you don't even know it's down, right?
You're bragging now, right?
Similar. Wait, I do have power walls.
I thought you did.
We just don't have our grid never went down, so I've never had that opportunity.
Even during the ice storm.
Oh,
you built after the ice storm.
After the ice storm.
That's right. Okay.
So yes, as far as the resiliency, yeah, that's what we wanted to try to build with.
Well, part of the resiliency thing, the infrastructure reduction bill that went through, really it's the second infrastructure bill.
Yeah.
But that put a lot of money out there so that businesses can install chargers, to help them get that up and running. But they have this NEVI standard where they have to be operational a certain percentage of the time. And I'm sure you know that number. I don't. But
yes.
It's in the high 90s somewhere. And you're saying 88% of the time it's the network connection. So really, we're going to get much closer to that 97% of uptime if we get rid of that one big black eye that we've got.
Yeah. Most of the NEVI funds are kind of surrounded with like regards to the DC fast charging. We haven't been able to put the DC fast charger, this technology inside DC fast charging yet. We are working on it.
No, I have no doubt.
And when we get there, oh man, is that going to be a game changer? I think we have a little bit of an uphill battle to climb. They want interoperability with these DC fast charging stations to make sure that, and because of the blockchain, they're less likely to. So we have to fuse blockchain ledger technology with OCPP. and make sure that they're communicating on the same platform. And we're close. We're pretty close to doing that.
Excellent.
And so I do feel pretty confident that either this year or next year we're gonna have that. And once we do that, then we can actually put that technology inside the DC fast chargers, but also couple it with the plug and charge standard. And then you also have a wireless charging standard that we are looking at too. So by putting all three of those with the blockchain technology in there, all those layers have to talk to one another and basically be able to speak the same language. So it'll be interesting to see where we're able to take this over the next 5-10 years. But we are super excited. I mean, by all costs and projections, forecasts, we are pretty much set to install close to about 40,000 charging stations per year by 2030. This charging station right here alone will help us accelerate that number. And hopefully if we can get there by 2028, then this charging station paid for itself, in my opinion, where it helped us get there faster. So it's what we're really excited about.
And the focus on the level 2 market, I think, is important. You know, you were talking about the customer being disappointed. Well, it's one thing if you're in an urban area like Austin and you come to a charger and it's not working. Maybe you call the 800 number on the charger and they're trying to activate it and they can't get it activated. Well, you go a couple blocks down, you use your PlugShare app or whatever. You find the next charger, you plug in. But you're out in some rural area. And one of the things when I'm talking about cross-country travel to people, I tell them, look, you're probably going to stop one time during the day, maybe when you're having lunch, to charge. Mm-hmm. So you're distracted by having a meal, you come out and the car's charged. But that second charge each day is probably going to be at a hotel or a campground while you're asleep. Mm-hmm. And so level 2 is perfect for that. Yep. Nobody's going to get up at 1 a.m. and go unplug their car so that somebody else can charge. So level 2 is going to take all night if you're filling the battery up from scratch, which is fine. But it is going to be critically important for that business owner. So you're a hotel owner and you've got chargers out there and people selected your hotel because they need to charge where they're going to spend the night. And they get there and find that charger's down. Your hotel's not just going to lose that little bit of income that you would have gotten from the charger. You're going to lose somebody that was going to stay the night as a tenant. And that's a big hit for you.
Huge.
And, you know, when you get into, I'm just going to throw this out there for you people who are thinking about installing chargers. If you're installing them, don't put them right there, right next to the door, because people are going to block those chargers all day long so they have a shorter walk to the door. It's going to cost you a little more money. Joey mentioned that earlier about it. You know, the longer the wire, the more expensive it's going to be. But put them a little bit further down so that people won't be parking there because it's a great parking spot. And my big thing is for the auto dealers. And we actually did this at the dealership. Now, I was fortunate. I worked at one of the biggest Chevrolet dealerships in the world. So I had a visionary owner of the dealership. And when I pitched the idea of this EV area, he had a trench cut through the parking lot out to where the cars sat. And he put chargers there under the canopies where the cars are displayed. And what we found was after each test drive, the sales guys weren't going to take some car out back and plug it in and then walk all the way back to the showroom. They were just going to put it back in the line. The car is empty eventually. So if somebody buys it, they can't drive it home. Or if they want to test drive it, they can't test drive it. So you put those chargers where the cars sit. And an added benefit is if you're not a Tesla dealership where everybody assumes it's all electric vehicles, if you're at a Chevy dealership, you might be driving through the parking lot and holy cow, look, right where those cars are parked, they're all plugged in. Those are electric cars. So for you dealership owners, put the chargers not out back where you're hiding the fact that you've got a wonderful product that your customers are dying to see. Put it right there in front where people drive by and see your beautiful inventory. Let them see that beautiful inventory charging. That just clears up so many doubts in people's minds when they see that.
Absolutely. I love it. I love the parallel. You mentioned the keys inside dealerships. This station, because it's app-based friendly, as a dealership, we're able to plug these stations into dealerships, give the the authorized user, we give them access to, okay, do you want to assign this sales agent, these sales agents, on their app? Do you want to assign these, rights to be able to charge? They can assign rights, they can take away rights, all that stuff. You're not dealing with a key fob or keys that you're handing with regards to charging. All the sales agents, you ever walk around a dealership and see the millennials on their phones? They all have it, literally. They're walking around like this. Either they're filming themselves or they're taking selfies or they're chat snapping, whatever they do these days, I don't know. They got the cell phone. So if it's easy as boom, and then they're able to do the charging session, that's what you want to make it easy, and you want to make it where their attention already is. And so by doing that, you're less likely to lose keys, lose key fobs, lose RFID cards. Everyone you can give access to being able to charge at that station. If if they're no longer working there, then it's easy as you going into the dashboard and just removing that person, and they don't have access to that station anymore. So you have a lot more access control via app based with this particular station, and it just makes it easier as an electric vehicle dealership to be able to support the charging aspect of all of your, but also support all the rest of your cars. But if you make that complex and you make it burdensome, it's going to be really hard for the dealership, GSMs, so forth and so on, to want to sell and want to be a part of that portion of sales when it's so much easier to sell these guys. So you have to make it easier for charging the electric vehicles if you're going to make it easier to sell the electric vehicles at the dealerships.
Yeah, and give you an idea of the impact of this, like I said, I worked at one of the biggest dealerships, but the annual loss of vehicle keys or key fobs is around $300,000 a year, and that's just salesmen putting them in a desk drawer, forgetting them that they're, just losing them.
That's crazy.
And those are keys that are tracked, so they even know the last person that got out of the machine,
right.
And still $300,000 every year just disappears. So not having an RFID tag or something else that is not personal to that salesperson, right. Like their phone.
Right.
If you can get rid of that, boy, you can save that dealership some money. So that's actually a great thing for car dealerships.
Wait. Okay, so we just bought a truck van, and it only had one key. And I said, I can't buy this unless I have another key. Can you take care of that for me? Dealership said, yeah, no problem. We'll come over tomorrow. We'll have it for you. I was like, all right, I'm not picking up the car until I have two keys. He's like, yeah, no. I was
That's
like,
a good move.
Do you have to bring the car somewhere else to get it keys made? He was like, no, we got it. So it sounded like he actually had a locksmith or a key guy at the dealership. Yep. Like somebody literally does this at the dealership for all their stuff. And
usually a guy in the parts department.
Yeah. So I went to go pick up the car the next day. The key was already ready. I had my double key. I have to have two keys just because I have employees that sometimes they lose the keys. So I have to have that redundancy built in for me. But generally we're pretty good. My guys are pretty good on that. So overall, when it comes to Smart Charge America's goal with this particular charger, like I said, if we're able to really cut the price of having the charging stations in the ground, able to accelerate the amount of charging stations we're putting in the ground, and we're able to, in a sense, increase the uptime for these charging stations, which is the reliability across the network, then Smart Charge America is doing our part to be able to impose our will on the marketplace and show people what it should look like, what a charging station network should be. Now, keep in mind, too, we have a little bit of the added value that we are the only electrical manufacturer on the planet or I guess in the nation, I wouldn't say on the planet because I don't know about Europe and China, but we're the only electrical manufacturer or electrical contractor in the nation that manufactures its own charging stations, installs, purchases, services, does everything from start to finish. So we have kind of an ownership interest to keep that station always up and running, and we are the electrical contractor. So whereas you have these other charging station manufacturers, they can only sell it to you. They can't install it, right? So they can only sell it to you, and some of them can't even put the software in that the cellular and all that stuff. They need another company to come in and provide that for them, but they can just sell you the charging station. But nobody can actually do all of those aspects.
So Smart Charge America is a one-stop shop.
That's
for
it.
all of this.
Now that we have that manufacturing, we have our own charging station component. Now we don't have to necessarily rely on supply chain issues or cost increases on someone else's part. Now we can control that for our customer all the way through and through. And if you buy our network, you buy our charging station, we're going to discount you a little bit on the station, going to discount you a little bit on the installation, discount you a little bit on the service side of things. We're going to discount to where we're going to make it a little bit more palatable for you to put our solution in there because we believe in our solution so much. And that's kind of the
well,
icing
and
on
no
the cake.
ongoing cell plans, so there's that savings that lasts forever, or as long as the device exists. Now, you said this press release is what, 1 or 2 weeks old, something like that?
Yeah, it's a few weeks old. There are two waves that go about for this particular press release. There's like the kind of the local wave, and then Xeal is actually going to be doing their own press release in similar form or fashion, but they're going to blanket the nation across. So I think they allowed us. They were like, "Hey, look, let's just do it local. Support the partnership, but we're going to work on a national brand of this partnership." And so, if you're not local, you probably haven't heard about it. but you're going to hear about it soon, very soon.
And when do you think they'll actually start installing these things?
Oof. So right now we have, it's about 2 weeks ago, well, we got everything in. We already sold 100 of them to one site. We are working with a very large dealership name. I don't know if I can name podcast rights or whatever, but they are planning on purchasing about 500 to 750 of our stations to be able to put in all the dealerships. It's just a smarter way of doing it. And when you have that price comparison, like almost like the kayak.com of all these different charging stations and manufacturers and ongoing cell phone plans, and then you have the Smart Charge America one that's like down here with all these check marks, it makes the argument kind of moot, I guess.
Now that 100 charger site, you may not be able to share the name of the business, but what kind of business is it?
It's a community, like the domain. I think there's certain communities in these large cities that are kind of operated its own like little sub community. They have their own grocery store, apartments, workplaces, all that stuff. There's a community in Austin that's being developed right now, and where the community is purchasing 100 of our chargers to be able to put and blanket across a lot of the retail hospitality sites, and that's just the first order. They plan on making 2 more orders after that.
Awesome. So
really excited to be able to kind of put our stamp on our hometown, but also share with the rest of the nation that, man, if you don't know about the solution, this is a mind-blowing difference between what's out there and what we're able to put in the ground. So hopefully with Xeal's prowess with regards to their technology, so forth and so on, that's why we made that partnership. They have the technical IT infrastructure, the prowess, the software prowess that we just don't possess. But we possess the hardware, we possess the contracting ability to go ahead and get these stations in the ground, monitor them, always make sure, because we only focused on all things electric car charging. We're not focused on other aspects of electrical. We don't care about that. If you go get another electrical contractor. But when it comes to charging stations, this is what we focus on. We are zealous about it. We're passionate about that stuff. So
now, there's one final step to installing a charger, and I hope you push this everywhere. I think you do.
I try.
It's the signage.
That's right.
We really got to make sure that people don't block chargers with gasoline-powered cars, and that they, the implied threat with the silhouette of the tow truck, that if you do this, you could be towed away.
Right.
But the other big benefit of prominent signage, and I love this about the Electrify America stations, they're so well lit that you just, what is that? Those bright green lights. Yeah. And the dealership that I worked for right across the street from us was 2 Blink chargers.
Not lit, not
exactly.
Probably.
And people would say, well, where am I going to charge my car if I get an electric car from you? And I would tell them, there's chargers all around you, but you don't see them because you haven't looked for them yet.
That's right.
And they're like where? And I would just point at those 2 Blink chargers across the street. Well, there's 2 right there. Now, neither one of them were functional,
right?
Because Blink has had its issues in the past.
True.
But in fact, you inherited one of my original Blink chargers.
It's in
your museum. I saw it today. I felt so proud to see my unit there.
That's you, man.
But those signs will help people to realize, wow, there are chargers everywhere. I'm going to need them.
That's right.
There's nothing holding me back from getting an electric car. I saw a really neat thing from Consumer Reports when I was at the Electrify Expo, and this is kind of the last thing I want to throw out there, but they said, and you probably remember this, you're probably old enough, but the first time you saw a flat screen TV, do you remember that event? Because I do. I mean, I saw it, and my jaw dropped. I'd never seen a picture like this before. And it was at Marvin Electronics in Fort Worth, but back in the day it was like this super high-end audio store where I would go buy my stuff, and feel special. But, I just had a senior moment. I lost it for a second.
No.
There,
I mean, when it came to like the flat screen TVs, what I saw is that the picture just moved different. It was like it almost slowed down, but it didn't. It wasn't. The motion of the picture, in addition to the clarity, in addition to the space saving and what you're able to do, putting it on the wall instead of having it on a box on the ground. On a cart like we used to have in school. When I saw that, I was like, "This is change."
Here's the point that Consumer Reports made. Mm-hmm. Consumers, when they first saw that, these televisions were $10,000
price.
The average person could not afford that TV, but even the average person didn't ever buy a tube TV again. They had seen what they wanted. They were going to wait until that moment. And when they could afford it, when the price came down or their income came up where they could get that flat screen TV, they knew that was what they wanted, but they knew they did not want another CRT TV.
So pricing pressures were really
So now
demand.
think about cars. So few people have sat in an electric vehicle so far that there's still the vast majority that just doesn't get it yet. And you know what a life-changing event it is that first time that you drive an electric car, especially if you punch it, and please punch it on your test drive because it's a life-changing thing.
Oh, man.
But you know what the next car is going to be when you experience that. Maybe if you're looking at a $150,000 Lucid, you're saying, I'm going to have to wait a while. But you may not realize that right around the corner there's a Kia dealer or a Chevy dealer that has them in the $30,000 range. And once you get federal income tax credit on it, it's a very affordable car that gets the equivalent of over 100 miles per gallon with great performance.
Absolutely.
But it's that kind of thing. What are you going to do if you go and buy another gasoline car in your lifetime? Let's say a week from now you need a car, and you go buy a gasoline car because you're not quite sure about those electric cars yet. Typically, people finance cars for 6 years. Who's going to buy that used car or allow you to trade it in 6 years from now if the market is fundamentally going to change? Now, you mentioned some things like California's at 8%. Texas is down around 1 or 2%.
I think 4, maybe 4%.
Yeah. 2013 to 2019 at a traditional Chevy dealership, 35% of all the vehicles I sold were plug-in in Big Oil, Texas. So it's here now. It's going to happen now. As soon as the salespeople either get to the point that they're comfortable telling people about electric cars or the consumers just get their education somewhere else, the tipping point's right here, right now.
Yeah.
So even your very next car purchase, you need to start thinking about your exit strategy for gasoline because it's coming and it's going to be forced on you one way or the other. And I think charging infrastructure has been one of the big holdbacks, even though we all know it's a myth. There are plenty of chargers for consumers to drive around the cities.
Yeah,
it's the cross-country stuff that's really going to be a problem. And for apartment dwellers, they need a place to charge. But this is going to be a big deal for EV adoption if we get the signage that people see them obviously out there. But I congratulate you guys. This is an amazing thing. Having worked in the software industry for years, I get it. This is going to really be something that eliminates all the problem points, or not all the problem points, but the vast majority of the problem points, and gets us back out on the road. So my hat's off to you, bud. You guys have done a great job.
Thank you so much. I mean, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for a lot of you and a lot of the people out there in the EV community that are really pushing, most importantly, getting butts in seats. Like you said, it's really hard to sell the cars unless you get butts in seats. And I think your strategy has kind of changed over the years. I think it's always been that way, but you've pushed butts in seats way more now. Maybe not. No, I think you were pushing it back in the day too. You're just stressing it a lot more. Like that's the only way, because you have to change people's mindset on what the vehicle does.
And they really can't imagine what it's going to be like. I didn't. That first time, and I had a great salesperson. The first EV I ever got in was a Nissan Leaf, and it was a woman salesperson. My wife and I are in the car, and as soon as we got away from the dealership, she goes, suddenly punch it to the floor.
That's on a Nissan Leaf.
Yeah. And even the
you
Leaf,
can still feel it
compared to any other car I'd driven,
still feel it.
Oh my God, You
can still feel it.
And just this last week when I was at the Electrify Expo, I got to drive a BMW i4 M50.
Okay, wait, i4.
And the M series, the M50.
Okay, gotcha.
So 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds.
Gotcha.
Which
That's
is
the gas car.
Corvette speeds,
Oh, yeah.
C8 Corvette. And so it had sprinkled on the road a little bit, and I punched it. And I've been driving electrically for 10 years, and that scared me. So there's so many great vehicles out there that are going to bring back what everybody wants. They want great MPG, or in this case, MPGe. They want very low maintenance cost, which all EVs give you.
Love it.
They want that performance. People don't buy cars to save the planet. They buy cars for styling, performance, and money savings. And EVs have all of that in spades.
And when you need it, you get that power. Yeah. It's just good to know you have it when you need it. You may rarely use it, but it's good to know that you have it. Unless you got butts in the seats and you're trying to convince your friends, like, hey, go ahead and punch it. I think I punch my EV more when my friends are in it than actually when I'm driving it. So like if you look at it, Joseph's pushed his EV to the max 10 times. 9 times I had my friends, and they were the ones driving it, not me. So yeah, once you get that feeling, exhilaration, it's there.
It took me 10 years to get over that. It used to be that the second thing I did after I pushed the power button in my car was I pressed the sport mode button so that I got maximum acceleration. And within the last month, I've realized that, well, like coming down here this morning, I set the cruise at the speed limit. I'm not passing everybody, everything.
Right.
I'm just taking a nice,
Coasting, man.
perfectly quiet electric vehicle drive down to Austin. Is great.
Coasting. You'll see. I mean, one of the things we talk about Smart Charge America doing is we don't stress this enough. We don't brag about it, but I did want to bring it up on this podcast, is that we do plant a tree for every single charging station that we install. And that's huge. We're going in and we're installing, 16 at a site, 8 at a site, even in your garage. If you buy an electric car, we are planting a tree in your name. And we don't do a portion of our proceeds go to this. No, if we install 300 charging stations that month, we're planting 300 trees. And so there's a sustainability portion that comes along with that. And we don't do a very good job of, one, marketing that, but also bringing it to the forefront of our guys out in the field and making sure that sustainability plays a big part. But it does mean a big part.
And I appreciate that. I think every little bit we can do helps things out.
Everything.
But one of the things, and you almost touched on it then when you said that my way of selling cars changed during the time. But one thing that did change, because
I wonder what changed. Yeah.
I've been this excited about EVs since I got my first one, I started the blog because my friends were like, okay, we get it. You like your car. Shut the hell up about it, So I had to find an outlet. But one of the things I found, and this is important for any of you that are showing your car off to a friend, if you're trying to get a friend into the EV world, is EVs are not political. They're not liberal cars. There's no such thing as a liberal car. And so what salespeople forgot to do, and what the average consumer doesn't know to do, is to speak to somebody in their language. So when you're showing your EV off to a potential buyer, if you're at the car dealership, or to a friend, well, the friend, you're probably going to know the language they speak. You're going to know if they're liberal or if they're conservative. Mm-hmm. And like I said earlier, almost nobody buys a car to save the planet. They buy the car for typical car reasons. And my mistake as a salesperson is somebody come in and say, I'd like to take a look at your electric vehicles. Oh, are you concerned about climate change? Oh, that's that liberal crap. And they turn around and walk out. Mm. So our politicians, and we've allowed our politicians to polarize us to the point that we will not even try something that's super enjoyable if we think it's for the other side. And so when I talk about talking someone's language, if you know they're really into the environment, then great. Talk about the environmental benefits of your EV. But if they're conservative, think about this. We won World War II because we had all these automotive plants that switched over to making armored personnel carriers and tanks and things like that. It was the manufacturing might of this country that helped us defeat Nazism.
Absolutely.
Okay. China is rolling out electric cars faster than anybody, and they will become the manufacturing powerhouse of the world, and we will lose our car industry if all of us just go, well, I'm not even going to look at EVs, Right. So we got to be open to it because American manufacturing is jumping on board. But you talk to that person then about national security, international competition, how affordable the cars are, how affordable they are to own. When you look at total cost of ownership, fuel cost, and everything, an EV is already price competitive with a gasoline-powered car of roughly the same feature level and performance level. So I think that, when you're out there showing off your car, because you're going to do it. If you haven't got an EV yet, trust me on this, you will become a zealot, and you can spell it with a Z or a X. It doesn't matter. But it's going to change you to where you're out there, and it's like you just saw the greatest movie, and you're just wanting to tell all your friends how cool this movie is. That's what we do. And it makes it a fun way to make a living, wouldn't you say? Don't you love talking about this stuff?
If you go on Buzz's podcast and you go on his blog, you will see he's got both hands up in the air like he is the evangelist. He is. He really is. He's like he's preaching the word of God, and he is absolutely excited and thrilled to do it day in and day out. And that's really hard. That's why you have to have the zeal. That's why you have to have the passion. It's very hard to continue to do it, especially when you get in the haters and the naysayers and what about this and what about that? It's like Buzz has an answer, and he will go on the offensive when it comes to that. He will have your back. But the most important thing is he's doing a lot to get the awareness out there to coach people up, get butts in seats, talk about EVs. We are kind of doing that on the same component on the charging station side of things. He's doing it on the EV side of things. So he's really complimentary to that. And Buzz, I wanted to thank you again for all the work that you do. I don't think that people understand the amount of time, energy, and effort that it takes for you to do it. But honestly, I don't even think you see it. You're so passionate about it. You don't even care. It's like, you're passionate about something. You don't even work. You're just doing it. It's amazing. It rolls off. And I think we're all better for it, Buzz. I really want to thank you and our audience members today for joining us today. Thanks for parking with us a little bit. Go ahead and click thumbs up icon, likes, comments, subscribe. Let us know if we earned it. Hopefully this conversation has kind of brought to light some value with regards to what Smart Charge America is able to bring forefront to the actual electric vehicle charging infrastructure movement that has to happen. And hopefully you guys are a little bit more in tune with Buzz. Check out his podcast. We're going to put a link below that you guys can actually see this. This thing right here, what he's got on his blog post, you want to talk about really diving into EVs, this is the blog post that you have to go to actually learn all things about EVs. And so we're really excited to have you here today, Buzz. I'm really excited to kind of catch our next podcast and we'll talk about. Who knows what we'll be able to talk about, but I'm pretty sure our minds will be able to come together. We'll be able to figure something out. But until then, audience members, know you can always find us at smartchargeamerica.com. And remember, if you can't charge, you can't drive. We'll see you next time. Cheers.